Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornanson, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, and humbled to have with me today, Justin Welsh. Justin is the Senior Vice President of Sales at PatientPop, which is one of Silicon Review's 50 fastest growing companies in the world. And as the seventh employee of PatientPop, Justin built the entire sales offices across New York City to LA, which has resulted in going from $0 to $40 million in recurring revenue in just 4 years. That's 4 years. Justin, I need you to teach us everything you've learned from doing that. And earlier in Justin's career, he was a key sales leader at ZocDoc, where he was a 4-time President's Club winning salesperson, sales manager, director. And you can find Justin speaking at some of the best SaaS events in the country, including being selected as a top opening speaker at SaaStr Annual and the Global Ventures Summit. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Brandon, it's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Dude, I know you've been a part of some wild growth at some wild, fast-growing companies, which I'm excited to dive in. But just to preface the conversation, the audience is dying to know two things. Sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. What is Justin Welsh's top sales secret? If you had to go back in time to when you first started in sales, what is that one secret, that one thing that you would tell yourself that you needed to master to maximize sales? But before you share that with the audience, we're also dying to know, who is Justin Welsh? What is your background? How'd you get started in sales? And then where have you worked? And what are all the sales successes and failures that you've learned from at all the places that you've worked, which we call micro secrets that help you level up, which lead us into your top sales secret today. So with that, without further ado, I'd love to just hear a little bit about you and your background and where you're from and how you got started. And I love the sweater. I'm from OSU and Ohio University, and we've got an office here in Columbus, Ohio. So I love connecting with a Buckeye. But cool. But go ahead, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up with a father who was in sales with the same company for about 41 consecutive years.
Damn, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, growing up, I had this idea that, I looked around at our family and we were, well-to-do. We had a couple of cars and a nice house, and I thought that was sort of the be-all, end-all. So I knew that, growing up, I wanted to be in sales, and I tagged along with my dad, and he was in pharma sales. So growing up in Cleveland,
where did he sell?
Yeah, he sold to a company called Burroughs Wellcome, which became Glaxo Wellcome, which became GlaxoSmithKline, awesome. Which is a really large pharmaceutical company. And my sales journey sort of started by following in his footsteps. Like I said, that was the be-all, end-all when I grew up. So I went out. What part
of Cleveland are you from? I'm from Westlake.
Oh, cool. I'm from the east side. I'm from near Chagrin Falls, a really small town called Novelty, Ohio. Okay, just about, I think there's 4,000 people. And so that's where he lived. And I originally grew up in Cleveland Heights, but I wanted to break into pharma like he did. And I did that by really spending a lot of my junior and senior year of college attending those career festivals that really aren't supposed to be for people that are still in college. But my buddy and I snuck into a few of those and actually landed some offers, which was a really funny when they found out that we were in college. And one of the companies that made me an offer when I was a senior in college, I returned the next year once I had graduated and started with them. And it was a very small company called BioVale in a very small town in Ohio called Steubenville. And that was sort of my MO early in my career. Was I went anywhere where the opportunity was. So a huge lesson for me early in my career is say yes to the opportunity. Right?
That's awesome.
I didn't care that it was in Steubenville. I didn't care that my next move would take me from Steubenville to Toledo, Ohio, where I ended up working with GlaxoSmithKline, like my father. And it continued to be the same lesson. Like, say yes to the opportunity that will get you ahead, regardless of what it does to your personal life, regardless of whether you care about moving or trying something new or being in a position where you're not fully sure of yourself. I looked at each opportunity that was put to me on a platter and just said yes, right? I didn't really analyze it or think about it. As long as I had an opportunity to move my career forward, I was the guy raising their hand. And you'll see as I move further into my career, this is a very common theme in how I moved my career quickly. I look at a lot of people today and they're saying, I wish I was doing something different. Well, how about this? No, too far. How about this? No, too small. How about this? No, too risky.
Damn.
If that's the mindset, then that's a very hindering mindset, in my opinion. So that's like maybe a sales tip or secret that I would.
Definitely a secret, dude. How did you build the confidence? Like, how did you build the confidence to say yes to opportunity? Like, where did that come from? That courage, that confidence, that willingness to just go for it?
I guess I didn't really have any other choice. When you're 21, 22, 23 years old, this is in 2004, right? I couldn't jump online and become a solopreneur, right? I couldn't, start a SaaS business in my basement. Like those just weren't realistic opportunities in 2003. I didn't know anything about that. So to me, I just didn't have a choice, right? Like either meander and stay static in a current role, or take opportunities for a bigger company, a bigger role, bigger pay, bigger commission, bigger quotas. And so it was really the fact that it was either that or do the same thing. So I wouldn't call it confidence. I wouldn't call it chutzpah or anything like that. I would just say like, it just seemed like the right move at the time. And if you're when you're 22 years old and you're single and you don't have a whole lot of things you're attached to, like what else do you bet on? You bet on yourself, right? So you can only bet on yourself if you're ready to take that bet. And I felt like I was at the time. So
dude, that's
what
awesome.
I did.
So you took the job at
Glaxo. Yep.
Glaxo. Yep. You had to move to Toledo.
Yep. Yeah. Spent about 4 years there, and this was sort of like a turning point in my career. To be honest, like I had bet on myself, but like I mentioned before, like you have to be ready to do that, and I probably wasn't ready. If you've heard me speak, or you can talk to anybody that I've worked with for a long period of time, my early years as a salesperson, I made a lot of bets on myself, but I wouldn't say that I was entirely ready. I was immature. I was potentially not ready for the responsibility that came with a large role. I cared more about my personal life than I did about my work life once I landed in Toledo and made a good social group. And I didn't particularly have an attachment to the product or service that I was selling, right? Selling pharmaceuticals, if I sold a few extra $1,000 or $100,000 of those pharmaceuticals, it was a few extra pennies, nickels, or dimes in the pocket of myself, where it was, a significant investment into the pocket of, the CEO of that business. And so I didn't feel super attached to that company one bit. And my success didn't feel like success in my own pocket. And what I started to recognize is that if I was going to invest a significant amount of my time early on, where I was a little bit less mature and a little bit less ready, I needed to see significant benefit directly to myself. And so when I encourage or mentor younger sales professionals who are looking to like get attached and kill it at a role, like I actively encourage them not to take the first job that they're offered. I actively encourage them, don't go somewhere because your buddy's there. Don't go somewhere because it has a specific logo on your resume. I'm not saying those are bad moves, but what I'm saying is the passion in which you sell something, the attachment that you have to your success and how it benefits both you and the business really, really matters. And there was a really big dynamic between working for a big business, which I did early on, and the pride that I took and the energy that I felt when I was successful, versus the latter half of my career, which has been working for small, SaaS technology businesses, where everything that I did was under a microscope and mattered to the company, multiple times over, versus my early experience at ZocDoc. So like another sales, I guess you could call it, secret that I would share is like, be incredibly passionate about the company that you join. Attached to the mission, vision, values. If you read the mission, if you look at the vision, if you go through the values and they don't speak to you, they don't bring you joy, they don't excite you, then don't work there. Because a lot of people that work there are insanely connected to the success of that business, and you have to feel the same way, or else it's not going to click for you the way that it clicks for everybody else. So that's just how I think about that.
Yeah, I love that secret of, look, don't just pick a place because it's got a certain brand recognition or whatever. If you love Mercedes, don't go and sell BMWs or like, it's just hard to, you got to sell it with purpose. You got to sell it with passion and that vision and that mission and aligning with that culture. I know I've been there before, selling something that I didn't love, or I would buy myself, and you sell it 10x less than if you like loved it and breathed it.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying that there are certain people that have put a big logo on their resume early on and then leverage that to have a better career. Of course there are. But I would say, like, given the amount of technology businesses, given the amount of exciting companies out there, given the economy today, go out. You as a good salesperson, you have the pick of the litter. Like, you can attach your name to so many different things, make it something you're excited about.
That's awesome. So then I know you transitioned your career over to ZocDoc, where you were a sales rep and then a manager and then a director. Yep. What is ZocDoc? How did you get connected with that company? Was it a startup? I don't know a lot about it. Sure. Would love to hear that story.
Yeah. So after spending, I transitioned. There was a short break where I went from pharma to med device because I thought, man, if I could just be in the operating room, that would be interesting. And it turns out it was a lot more stressful than I was probably ready for at that time. Watching your machines break during surgery wasn't exactly my idea.
Oh my God. That freaked me out, man. That would freak me out.
It did prepare me very, very, very well for the rest of my career. So in 2009, in I think November, I got a call from a company called ZocDoc. At the time, they were just about 10 people big, I think 9 or 10 people. And ZocDoc was really attempting to be sort of the open table, but for doctor's appointments. So it was the first,
cool, man.
Yeah, it was the first consumer directory. It's a dual-sided directory where consumers can book doctor's appointments online directly into the integrated scheduling system in doctors' offices. And doctors can choose to subscribe to the service so that they can acquire more patients and streamline their office and things like that. So I believe I was the second sales hire there. I started in December of 2009. Again, very little funding at the time. I think there was just a seed or maybe a small A round. And I moved to New York City. I jumped on a bus. I was living in Allentown, Pennsylvania, along those lines of going everywhere I could go to get the next best job. And I took a bus to New York City. I slept on a friend's couch for 6 months in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And I got attached to this company, and I got attached to this product and the pain point that it solved. Like, I love the fact that I could book online doctor's appointments. When I showed my friends and my family, they're like, oh my God, I would totally use this. So like, I felt this passion and this energy connected to both this brand and this product. And unlike some of my previous roles where maybe I wasn't 100% ambitious or connected, like something just changed. Like a switch just flipped in my mind where suddenly, like, I was in the field at 8 a.m. I was busting my butt till 7 p.m. Like, I was running around like crazy, slamming bagel sandwiches in my mouth, not taking a lunch break. Like,
I moved to New York too. That's all you do is like, you hit the road, you're running, you grab a bagel with the cream cheese, and you're rolling.
I was on fire, man. I was on fire for like the passion that I had for the business and the company. And, we had little weekly quotas, and I remember thinking that was stressful, but I made my mark there by going, I think 104 consecutive weeks of not missing my quota. And, I started in New York, and then just 7 or 8 months in, I became known as a guy that figured it out and did a good job. So they moved me to San Francisco, where I launched that market for providers there. Maybe about 12 to 18 months later, they moved me to Boston. I built teams in both of those cities. And then over the course of the time that this was happening, ZocDoc raised over $150 million in capital. Last I checked publicly, they were worth about, the last public article that I saw was a valuation of around $1.8 billion. And in the meantime, I'm moving back and forth. I moved across the country 4 consecutive times, East Coast to West, West to East, East to West, West to East. So I went, New York to San Fran to Boston, Boston to LA, and then LA back to New York. And I moved up in the company, building small regional or small local teams to eventually building large regional teams on the West Coast. And my last stop there was reporting directly to the CEO at that time, Syrus Masumi, building an ancillary product called ZocDoc for Business, which was a product that we sold to Fortune 500 businesses in New York. And I guess my experience there and my secret there is like, it's no secret about working for that company. You work hard and you work with excellence at all times. Like every single person that was in that building was absolutely excellent at their job. And it instilled this like reverse of my 23 or 24-year-old self. It instilled something in my soul where like I run 100 miles an hour at everything that I want to be successful at. And I'm obsessed with being successful. So it came from Syrus on down through the rest of the org. And I say this in the most complimentary fashion. Everybody was obsessed with being successful there. And I loved that environment. I had never been in that environment. And
how do you create that environment?
Yeah. Like it comes from the top, man. It comes from the CEO. Like the CEO is so instrumental in setting the tone for the business. Like I've worked or I've seen other startups, right, where the CEOs aren't as energetic. They aren't as passionate. They don't drive that sort of behavior through the org from the CEO to the VP level to the director, manager, and individual contributor. And Syrus was a guy who was excellent at that. Like when he got up on stage to speak or got up in front of the company, like you got psyched, man. Like you would stay there till Friday evening for 3 hours just to hear the guy speak because he just pumped you up. He got you so excited because we were changing the world. Like that's the way that we looked at that business is we were absolutely changing the way that people access healthcare, and they're still doing it today. And so like a big secret, and it kind of parlays in with what I was talking about previously, is like if you pick a company that you're pumped about, and if you pick a leader that is visionary, exciting, passionate, obsessed with success, like the recipe of the recipe those two things create together is incredible, man. The funding, the growth, the people. And so that's something that I bring with me today is like, if you come into PatientPop today to work and you're like not obsessed with this company and this growth, like I just look at you differently. Like I can't fathom that because I've been through that. Does that kind of make sense or no?
Yeah, no, it totally does. It totally does. And you said the reason why you were able to be so successful at ZocDoc, just because this is a great thing to talk about.
Yep.
You said hard work.
Yeah.
So was it just, waking up early, staying late, putting in the hours, making the calls, which for you, I think was knocking door to door or?
It was, yeah. Yeah. Like, it's a combination, right? Like there's a big work smart, not hard push. And I get that, right? Like I am married, I have a family, like I cannot be out 5 a.m. to midnight. Like I just can't do that. It's not part of my daily grind today. But when you're starting out, like if you're not working hard, and I mean like physically laboring for your job and your quota, you're wasting time, like in my opinion, right? And I'm sure there will be plenty of people that will listen and be like, no, man, I get everything done 9 to 3. More power to you. But in my opinion, when I was learning that business, when I was learning how to be excellent, when there were very little resources, when there was very little collateral, all the stuff that average mediocre salespeople complain about and use as excuses when they can't hit quota, like create it, build it,
design it, go on Fiverr, get that shit done.
Exactly. So, for me, it was all about just like leveraging as many hours in the day as I could to be successful because I was 25 or 26 years old. Like, when are you going to have that much time and that much energy to drive your career forward? Everything I did in my 5 years at ZocDoc has propelled my career to where it is today. So like my big secret is not a secret. The secret is like outwork your peers, outwork your competitors, invest in yourself, right? Spend time reading, learning, doing, ingesting information. Like if you're not doing it as a young salesperson, it gets much more difficult to do it as a salesperson when you're 15 years into your career.
Yeah, no, that's great advice and a great secret to share with the audience. It's interesting, as I'm the CEO of Seamless.ai, like I work 7 days a week. I've been doing that for 3-4 years. When I was a top salesperson prior, I was pretty much doing the same thing. Like, and then you've got all the people that will, criticize you because you're working so hard, but like, dude, it's a competitive advantage. While everyone's off grinding, working through it, and kind of like a marathon runner, to your point of like, you just got to hustle and you'll build up the tolerance to do it. Like I didn't build up a 7-day work life
100%
by like, you can't, it's like cold turkey. You just you build it up, you keep extending, you keep going, and then you're there. And I find that is a huge advantage.
Me too.
For building a company. It sounds like that's what really helped you crush it at ZocDoc. How did you not get pissed or upset about flying from here and then, I'm there and then I got these friends and then I got to move to here, and like, it sounds exhausting, man. Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like this may sound really cheesy, but like, I'm not an artist, so I don't know how to draw or sculpt or paint, but I can assume that like working on something that takes a really long time probably sucks most of the time, right? And like, but when you have a finished picture or sculpture or piece of art, like it's probably pretty incredible and enthralling would be my guess. And so like what really got me out of bed, onto a plane, into a train, going somewhere, 5 days a week, traveling, was like not the idea of what I was doing in the immediate term, right? Like I wasn't focused on like, here I am and this kind of sucks sometimes. I was focused on like, what does ZocDoc look like if we're talking about, sort of that point of my career? Like, what does this thing look like in 5 years, right? And what do I look like in this overall puzzle of ZocDoc? Like, how do I move my career forward? And I'm telling you, like, every little ounce that I gave, like, the recognition, that peer recognition I got from the guys and girls I was working with, the leaders of the company, they really pumped me up and they helped me connect to the positive things that I was doing for the business. So it wasn't like, yeah, I'm on a train and this sucks. It was like, I'm on a train because 3 years from now, I'm going to be running a massive sales team at this business. I'm on a train or a plane because 5 years from now, I'm going to be the VP of sales at a business, which is exactly what happened. I'm on a plane or a train right now because 10 years from now, I'm going to be the CEO of my own business. And by working this hard, I may not have to do it 10 years from now every single day, but if there needs to be a day or 2 days or 3 days a week when I do need to do it, I'll know how to do it. That was sort of what kept me motivated.
That's awesome. You just knew it took whatever it takes, it sounds like. And you said yes to the opportunity, going back to your initial secret.
Sure.
And you just got to do it. Was it? Yeah. It was probably awesome too, like getting an experience. When I moved to New York City, right awesome. After I sold my second company that made no money, dude, moving to that city was fun. And then I never had the opportunity to live in San Fran. Traveled there a lot for business, but going to all the cities, it sounds like a blast.
Yeah, I loved it. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I bet. So then, after ZocDoc, I know you did some work at PublicStuff and Fundraise, and then you landed at PatientPop.
Yep.
Anything big that you learned, at like, why did you leave ZocDoc? And then, what did you learn at PublicStuff and Fundraise from successes, failures?
Yeah. So, I left ZocDoc after about 5 years. And I mean, frankly, like, and by the way, it's like, I have nothing but awesome. The company's so awesome. And, but one day I just kind of got up, I was in the shower and like, it just didn't feel as amped, right? Like I didn't feel as jazzed to go to work. And, I thought like, hey, this is probably an opportunity for me to reevaluate whether it makes sense for me to do that next thing in my career, that thing that I had been working so hard in preparing for. And it just so happened that from a timeline consideration or timeliness, one of the guys who was a peer to me at ZocDoc, who I had a lot of, I just really trusted in and felt like he was a great leader. His name is Trevor Clark. He actually leads sales at Notel right now in New York, which is a huge, booming, thriving startup in the real estate business. Awesome. He was leaving and going to PublicStuff, and he was joining a guy that I knew named Surya Yalamanchili, who I believe had worked at either LinkedIn, I think it was LinkedIn, and he was coming over, and we were doing kind of like what you call a flip job. Myself, Trevor, and Surya We were inserted into a company called PublicStuff. It wasn't going particularly well at the time. Our goal was to really turn that thing around and get it acquired. And we did that in about 10 months. I was the director of sales there. Trevor was the VP, Surya was the CEO, and we really ramped up revenue, and that business was acquired in 10 months by a government software company called Acela. And I learned a major lesson there. Like, work with people you trust, right? Work with people that you know are excellent. Wow. So that's been in my MO actually now as well, moving forward. So when we talk about PatientPop, you'll notice that there's 6 degrees of separation for a lot of the employees there. And for me, like, I love the feeling of working with someone that I trust, working with someone that I know is excellent, working with someone who, like, if we have a disagreement, we can lock a door, we can jump into a room, and we can like argue it out in an hour and come out and be as close as ever with each other, but also have a solution for the problem that we were trying to solve. So like, I build my internal network at my companies now with folks that I trust, folks that I've worked with, people that I know are excellent and execute. And that was a huge takeaway from me at PublicStuff. Every other business I had ever joined up until that point was like walking into a room full of strangers, and I no longer do that.
Wow. And just because these guys, even though the company was struggling, they were excellent. You trusted them. You knew that you guys would figure it out, problem solvers, whatever it takes.
Yep.
That's great. That's great.
Yep.
And then,
and so Fundraise, just to give you a quick, I'm doing some leadership consulting there. So not a full-time gig. My next role was PatientPop.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sells, and then I assume you're like, okay, but by the way, like, let's talk about that. So this company's down.
Yeah.
They bring you guys in. Mm-hmm. What was the secret to turning it around and selling it?
Like laser focus, right? Like, we came in, we sat down, we understood what we wanted to do from a revenue perspective. Like, here I was, the quote unquote director of sales, and Trevor, the quote unquote VP of sales. I use quotes because our team was small. I mean, we probably didn't have more than 8 people on our sales team.
Okay.
So that's a significant amount of layers for such a small team. And so really, man, like behind the scenes, we were all participating in getting that revenue, right? It wasn't like, whoa, I'm the VP. Hey, I'm the director, right? No, thank you. I don't feel like participating. Like we were hammering the phones. Like we were hammering and doing the work.
The committee kind of going after all these accounts.
100%, dude. Like we divvied the country up. We rewrote the process. Awesome. We rewrote the messaging. We rewrote the marketing plan, and we executed.
It's probably a lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun, man. It was super fun, really small office in Chelsea in New York, and just like grinded it out, and it bared fruit. So, that was a really great experience and definitely set me up for success in my current role.
Great. And then obviously they sell, you're ready to go to PatientPop. Mm-hmm. How did you hear about them? How did you get involved with them?
Yeah.
Because I think you joined, did you join early?
Yeah. Yeah. The company was really like created in late 2014, and it was the brainchild of 2 guys, Luke Curvin and Travis Schneider. They're co-CEOs, a couple of guys from Canada who had sold a few businesses previous, one to Meredith Corporation and one to Pop Sugar in San Francisco. And they were really from the e-commerce space. And they were,
I was about to say, totally different industry, man.
It's totally different. They were e-commerce experts, and they were building a healthcare platform. And they were building a platform called what we call practice growth platform. And it was a new category that we were defining at that time. And really, it's an all-in-one platform for acquiring new patients, streamlining the front office, and modernizing the patient experience. It's kind of like doctors have a ton of different choices on what they can buy to market and improve their practice. And we're the first all-in-one platform that allows them to buy one license and get everything they need to market their practice successfully. The way that you or I might use a HubSpot for our marketing, that's kind of like what we are to doctors. So,
that's sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah. The way that we were introduced is along the lines of that 6 degrees of separation that I talk about, where their first sales hire, a guy by the name of Max Kim Brown, was actually my rep at ZocDoc in Los Angeles. And when they were looking for a VP, they had product market fit. They were looking for a VP. Max had recommended me. And they had interviewed a ton of leadership folks at ZocDoc, and my name was a consistent name, which is super humbling and awesome. And, they contacted me about the role, and like, it took me really 3 months to like really accept it. I had to meet them in person. We grabbed some coffee. I took a look at the product. We did all that stuff. But once I got under the hood of the product, like, I was sold. Like, I knew that healthcare providers were going to buy this thing in bunches because it solved a tremendous pain point. So got introduced through Max. And 4 years later, he is here today. He runs my entire field operation, running a $15 million business unit with, 4 managers and 30 reps. So he's grown, I've grown, and so much has happened over the past 4 years. I'm happy to kind of share what that path of success looks like, if that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And so do you focus on like smaller practices,
Sure.
or because they need a platform like a PatientPop HubSpot type of integration solution, right? To do all their online marketing and acquisition.
Yeah, we definitely started in that 1 to 2 doctor space, right? Which is quite large TAM. Like, you can attack the market. There's plenty of people out there. And that's still core to our business. I would say our core group of doctors is probably physician groups from 1 to 10. But this year we have, we're significantly invested in moving up market and looking at those larger groups. We don't service hospitals today, not quite yet, but we service that private practitioner, that private medical group that wants to stay private and needs the tools to compete with large hospital systems.
That's awesome. And what's like, when you started, were you like the third employee? Like, what number were you on the roster there?
Yeah, I was, I think 7th or 8th probably.
So you were super early.
Super early. Yeah, I came in with basically like, I don't know, we probably had 10 or 11 customers. I say 0 to 40 million in 4 years. It's pretty much that, right? And we might have had 30K, right, in recurring revenue.
Yeah, I was about to say, how much were you selling the solution for when you started?
Yeah, I came in as the VP, but I was the VP of Max. Like, I was the VP of one guy. And, I went out and I figured, like, if you're going to lead, if you're going to scale, if you're going to inspire, like, you have to do it. Like, you have to carry the bag. You have to understand the product. You have to understand people's jobs. And so for the first 3 months, like, I just did what I did at ZocDoc. I ran around, knocked on doors, sold the product to a bunch of physicians, learned it, loved it. And that allowed me to understand who's our ideal customer profile, who's our ideal candidate profile. Yep. And I went out and I built our team, I think, to 5 or 6 in the first year. And, we ended our first year in 2015 at $3.5 million in bookings, which was pretty significant for year one.
That's awesome. So the first few customers, like, just because, Seamless is a startup, we'd love to do 0 to 40 in 3 years.
Yeah, sure.
So like, I'm trying to understand, this is an incredible story. So when you first came on, were you selling it for like $100 in an office? Like, what was the price tag of that thing?
Yeah, no, it was a $4,800 annual subscription.
Okay.
So yeah, it is now
like $400 a month or something.
Yep. Full 1 year term, paid monthly, quarterly, or annually. You could earn some discounts.
And you always did an annual commit.
Yes.
Which
100%.
Were the founders doing an annual commit before you came on board? Okay. Yes. So that's good. Cause the month to month is brutal. You came in and then
brutal.
Yeah. And I mean, all these procedures, like, these doctors are making a lot of money on everything that they do.
That's right.
So you got to figure 4,800, like, that's a hour's worth of work almost, probably way less than that actually. So that's affordable. And then you come in, you prospect and sell. Now, did they have a lot of inbound leads, or was it like no one knew you guys?
Nobody. Nobody.
I figured.
We probably didn't get marketing leads until late 2016 would be my guess. But yeah, no one heard of us. This was a ground attack. Yeah,
ground attack. You come in, you got to prospect and hunt. But you were already used to like knocking on these doors of hospitals and health systems from the GlaxoSmithKline days, which is awesome.
Yep.
So that seems like that probably wouldn't scare you. And then, what was the secret from 0 to 1, and then let's go 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 40, because at each of those stages, it's fucking hard. At all of those stages, it is really hard. Did you guys have a lot of funding? Like, I don't know, startup, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, we got our seed round from Athena Health, which is a huge medical EHR company in the cloud, and they gave us a large investment. It wasn't super large; it was a large seed. So we had a little bit of funding, but I attacked my network. I went out and I found every person that I knew that was extremely successful at SMB SaaS healthcare businesses who were doing literally exactly what I wanted them to do. And I went out and I hunted those people down, and I was ruthlessly efficient at doing it and finding every person in my network that I knew was good. Early on, like, big secret for me, when you're building a business early on, like, you cannot afford to take chances on salespeople. Like, if you are like, yeah, this person's a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, and you make that your first, second, third sales hire, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice. Like, your first sales hire, you should either be confident is a 10 out of 10. You should fail fast if they're not, right? Or you should hit your network and say, like, I'm going to get Greg, I'm going to get Jim, because those guys are monsters, right? And like, I know putting them in these positions, we're going to succeed. And then as you do that, like, as you go from 1 to 5, you're not going to be able to hire those types of people anymore. Your network runs thin, right? You suddenly start to realize you don't know as many like top 1% salespeople as you think you do when you start to come through your network. And so you have to be really, really efficient early on at identifying, why are those people really good at this particular job, right? And I know there's like, you create an ideal candidate profile, right? And for me, like, a huge secret was I figured out all the personality traits those folks had. I figured out all the soft skills and hard skills they had. I gave each of them a weighting, right? 1 to 10, how important were those things? I graded every candidate the same way by asking them the same questions, putting them through the same role play scenarios, and grading them the exact same way. And at the end, the grade would often indicate, am I making good hire? And if I started to notice over time...
And let's repeat those 3, because that's huge. Everyone's trying to like hire the best of the best, whether it's SDRs, AEs. So what were those 3 just quickly again?
Yeah. So I was usually just like hard skills, soft skills, and personality traits. So like, I'm just trying to think of a really good example up front. Like, one would be like, what's your sales process, right? Walk me through your sales methodology. And I don't want to just hear like, I work hard, I work smart. Like, here's your quota, back out of that, right? Like, help me understand how you might back out of that, and then how you might schedule your day, week, month, year in order to hit that goal. You can talk about softer things like, how do you handle confrontation? How do you handle, a pause in the buying cycle? Like, give me examples. Thank you for that one example. Everyone has one. Give me another. Thank you for that 2. Very few people have 2. Give me a third. Thank you for that third. Very few people have 3, right? So like, really peeling the onion back on understanding whether or not someone's really good at interviewing or really good at selling. And so I had hard skills, soft skills, personality traits, and that weighting 1 to 10. Like, 1, it's not that important in this role. 10, it's hyper important in this role. And then I would grade them, multiply them out, and get a final score, right? Over time, as I noticed shifts as we became a larger company, I could move those weightings up and down. Maybe having perfect process became more important. Maybe working hard became less important. And by adjusting those weightings, I was able to adjust my ideal candidate profile, but never come out of a room and say, what do you guys think? Yeah, we liked her. We liked him. Like, that's not the way to hire. Like, you have to have a rigid process. And I like to just shout out Mark Roberge's Sales Acceleration Formula. It's like my favorite book for learning those kinds of things. So that was a secret for me early on.
That's awesome. And you said you hunted. So like, Seamless, we sell kind of similar to Salesforce, like $100 a month per user license, unlimited sales leads. So like, we're going after SMB and mid-market. And then as we scale market share, we're going larger. So your recommendation to a SaaS company like ours, or anyone out there, like, you were selling SMB, right? $400 a month. You would recommend like hunt the best of the best that sell that like high transaction value. Go after them ruthlessly, because if you hire the wrong person, if you hire the wrong people, it will destroy your sales success.
Totally. I read a blog recently by Jason Lemkin, who I love, and he hit the nail on the head when he said, like, you can bring in, and by the way, I'm not quoting him, so I'm not trying to attempt to quote him because I don't remember the quote, but something to the extent of like, you can bring an enterprise person into an SMB role and the velocity will kill them. And like, I've seen that, right? I've taken med device reps who sell $1 million worth of business in a year, but they only make 2 sales, brought them into PatientPop where they got to make 100 sales.
It's a micro secret.
The velocity kills. Yeah, the velocity kills them. Like, it's easy to manage. Shouldn't say it's easy. It is different to manage 2 really large sales deals than it is to manage 300 small deals that need to turn into 100 small deals. Like the velocity, the sales cycle, the negotiation, like, is just radically different. So to the extent that somebody has the experience in the same segment, to me, I don't care about healthcare, man. Like, you can learn about doctors, you can learn about office managers and stuff like that. I care about velocity. I care about sales cycle. I care about pipeline and process. So that was something I learned very early on.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you prospected these killers, these great top performers hard.
Yep.
You got to make sure, it sounds like another secret, like if you do high transactional sales, stick to high transactional salespeople.
Definitely.
Enterprise, like I'm lucky because I've done both. It's definitely different because I'm so used to selling multi-million-dollar deals and then selling high transaction. It's just, the funny part is it's the same. You got to be a big problem solver. Like, I know you probably sold both too. You just have to have high tenacity and resilience and just transform quickly. But like, not a lot of people can do that.
Totally.
And your percent on like the number of people, that probably failed going from high ticket to low ticket, high transaction, like 9 out of 10 probably
75 or 80%. Yeah. I can think of like,
can't risk it.
I can think of 2 guys in my org who like did it successfully. And, it's not always easy to isolate why. So I just stick with folks that come from like, Paychex, Paylocity, like companies like that, Groupon, where they're selling things like that. A lot of my managers, a lot of my individual contributors, a lot of my directors, they plugged right in and they just understand the velocity of the business.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great advice. I just hired someone from Paychex. It's awesome. Good.
They're great.
Check. No, he's killing it too. He's like day 4 crushing it. So when it comes to, that took you from like, you said 0 to like 5, right?
Yeah. 0 to 5 or 10 or something with that kind of thought process, really.
What was the hardest time period from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 40? Like what was the hardest time period? And like, what's the secret to go from the 1 to 10 and then 10 to 40?
Yeah. I think the biggest difference, which will maybe play into the secret, is when you go from 1 to 10, you're like growth focused, right? You are like, get growth at all costs. And as a sales leader, it's pretty easy. No, it's not easy again, but it's like, it's easier to figure out how to go out and get revenue when you have good people in your organization. As you start to go 10 to 40, or where we're at now, which is going 40 to 100 in the next 7 quarters, like it's growth focused, but it's efficiency focused as well, right? Like more money in there from VCs, you have more investments, you have more capital. So how do you spend that capital effectively? You're not just like, an immature group of little kids out there running around trying to build this business. You're now a mature startup going for, upwards of $500 million to $1 billion valuation. So you have to be ruthlessly efficient when you do it. So that was a change in mindset for me, where it was like I was always growth focused and now I had to be growth and efficiency focused. And people who have been chief revenue officers for 20 years are saying, yeah, no shit. But that wasn't me, right? I was 2 years into my first executive job and I was learning on the fly. And so it really becomes, the secret becomes not getting your buddies on board, things like that. It becomes, how do you use the data that's available to you historically to make better decisions moving forward? And again, anyone with 15 years experience will say like, no kidding. But a lot of people who are in their first executive role, in their first director role, running their first sales team, they're not looking at those things. And so it's pairing up with marketing to understand for every dollar you spend in marketing, what kind of return you get on the revenue side in sales. It's understanding if I've got a body in an outbound seat or I've got a body in an inbound seat, which of those produces more and how much do they get paid and what's the cost of acquiring that customer and where do I invest more, right? And it's really easy to do it with a couple of people and say, I should flip the switch and invest here. because this is where I get a better return on my money. But like an N of 2 or 3 is not always a provable experiment, right? It's how can you show that with 3 people, 6 people, 10 people, 15 people? And how do you know when you're ready to say go and scale something that you're confident in? So like that to me was one of the most challenging things, going from 10 to 40. And going from 40 to 100, it's now like, how do you turn this into a water and grow scenario, right? Like how do you take a bunch of plants, pour a bunch of water on them and know that they're going to grow at the exact same rate? And that's what we're figuring out now. But we use our historical data. We invest in really good data and analytics to make sure that when I spend $1, I'm getting the most return that I possibly can get.
Oh, that's huge, man. That's incredible. Okay. So you've taken us throughout your career, which has been just, let's go over some of the micro secrets. Say yes to opportunities so far. Hire great people, right? Work with the ones you trust that you know will lead you to the promised land, or that you can work with to get to the promised land. Work your ass off. That was a big one. You said like, I was hustling 7 days a week. I was traveling, working hard, like no matter whatever it took, right? So sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Justin Welsh, if you had to go back in time to when you first started in sales and you had one sales secret to give, what is your top sales secret to maximize your sales success?
Yeah, I don't want to let you down because it's not going to be like some huge hidden secret, but like my favorite thing that I tell every training class that comes into PatientPop is like, giving a shit has the biggest ROI. Like,
I love that. Dude, I'm going to see the chapter. It's going to have your picture and it's going to have your quote. Giving a shit gives the biggest ROI.
Like
keep going.
It does. Like you can pick off your friends and your peers from other companies early on in your company career, right? You can use data to understand historically what's worked and what hasn't. You can, to the extent that you can surround yourself with people that you trust, like those are all really great things, but really big businesses, right? And really big careers and really good peer networks are built by like surrounding yourself with the right people. And the right people don't always look exactly the same. The right people in my organization today, yes, they've sold SMB, most of them, right? Different businesses, different industries, different ages, different tenures, different paths there. So it's really hard to isolate like these are the 70 different things that someone has to have. It's really challenging. But I can tell you what is a guarantee is if the person that you hire is not 100% attached at the hip to your mission, vision, and values, doesn't live, sleep, and breathe everything that your company does, doesn't like work their asses off, not for themselves, but for like the business. If you can't find a way to find those people, in my opinion, you'll never maximize your potential. And so negativity, complaining, harassment.
We have a no negative rule. I try to get rid of those people as fast as possible.
Me too. People can get emotional. They can get upset. They can be pissed off. I allow all of that. I like when people get pissed. That means they're passionate. I can think of one of my directors right now who, flies off the handle once a quarter, but he does it because he cares so much. Yep. And like he'd run through a brick wall for us. So, my sales secret is
that's different than always being negative.
That's right.
Like that's like not complaining. It's just like you disagree with the strategy. You've got a strong position and you believe in it, and that's okay.
Yeah. My sales secret is not like, find everyone who's happy and cheery and positive, but it's definitely giving a shit has the highest ROI, and you surround yourself with the people who are as passionate about the role as you. That's a great thing for leaders and directors, but it also translates to your individual contributors, your sales reps. Like, dude, there's 1,000 sales blogs. There's 500 sales books. There's 3 million sales podcasts. If you're sitting around at the office and you can't figure out how to be successful at your job and you're not investing the time and energy into those things to get better, then why do you work there? Why are you in sales? Like, giving a shit matters. So start doing it all the time. Invest in yourself early on. It'll become a habit and it'll propel you in your career.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I love it. And so the recommendation for anyone that wants to improve their giving a shit mentality, is it, because this is hard to like train and teach and coach, right? Like what do you do when you've got a sales rep who's good, you want to take them from good to great, and that giving a shit like factor could just be dramatically improved? How do you coach them up?
Wow, that's a really great question. I think the best way to probably coach someone up is to attach that to what they want to achieve in their career, right?
That's like great advice.
For me,
motivation, what motivates them, find out what motivates them and then try to attach it so they give a shit more.
And you, believe it or not, you can't just be like, hey, care, and expect someone to care, right? Like you have to paint the picture of what's available in the future by really caring and by really investing their time and energy into your business and into their role, right? So oftentimes, like, I'll sit down and I'll peel back the onion a little bit and try and understand, where do they want to go? What do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? And then we'll kind of outline like a really good path of steps to get there, right? And sometimes that can be 30, 45, 60 steps. Like it's pretty granular. And you're actually starting to establish habits, right? So the goal with those steps is to say, like, we checked off number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And pretty soon as they check those things off on their path up to getting what they want, like it becomes habitual, right? It doesn't become like me having to have a one-on-one for them to update it. Like they're updating it proactively. They're sharing it with you. They're like, hey man, just crossed off number 9, just crossed off number 10. And they're actually building a habit without really thinking about it. And like I said, I wasn't always like obsessed with trying to do things well. For the first 6 years of my career, I hardly cared at all. And so for me, it was habitual. It started at ZocDoc and it was fed and nourished and learned by people who were better than I was. And that helped me. And I try and do the same thing today.
That's amazing, man. Well, that's a great way to wrap this up. Giving it a shit, is the maximum way to achieve ROI? Or how do we phrase that again?
I just think giving a shit has the highest ROI.
Highest ROI. Giving a shit has the highest ROI. And a great way, tie the motivation, to tie why they wake up every day and, what motivates them every day to increase that factor, that game changer factor effect, that sales secret effect. Justin, this has been a pleasure. Go Buckeyes. Where can people connect with you, subscribe, follow you for more, my man?
Yeah, you can just head over to my website. It's Justin, Justind, Welsh, WELSH. So JustinDWelsh.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin SAAS. And those are really the two places I hang out, but make sure to find me on my biggest platform, which is LinkedIn, where I do a lot of content creation. And it's just Justin Welsh, SVP of Sales over at PatientPop. And Brandon, been a heck of a time, man. Really enjoyed this conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for digging in and sharing all of the secrets from your massive success. And I know you're headed to SaaS. It'll be great to connect there. If anyone's headed there, be sure to connect with Justin. And again, go to his website, JustinDWelsh.com, and LinkedIn, Justin Welsh, to follow him for more. And thank you, audience, for tuning in to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Order a copy of the book at secretsalesbook.com. That's secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.